Howdy, y'all, and welcome back to Sacred Axis, a space for the whimsically divine. I'm Chesten.
I'm Christina.
All right. So today we're going to talk about metaphors. 2 metaphors to be exact. And if metaphor is not the best way to describe these things, I apologize ahead of time. And y'all can correct me on the better phrase to use for it. Because we've been talking about, or I've noticed that these metaphors have helped me when it comes to having boundaries, establishing boundaries. And then also it helps me better understand when it comes to communities, what my responsibilities are in my community, what other people's responsibilities are in the community, how we can help each other, and then what things are unfair to me to put on myself as being responsible for the other person. Does that make sense?
It does.
Okay. Not that any of us have ever done that, right?
No, never.
Never. So I'm going to start with the one that I think will be a little bit not quite as broad, though who knows. So it's the soup metaphor. And so before I start with it, I'll tell how it came up. And it's just been within the past, like in January, I was taking a cranial sacral therapy seminar. It was the somato-emotional release one. And I wanted to focus on having even better boundaries because I thought I had decent boundaries, but it still kind of felt like meh with it, like that they could be better or that it just, yeah. And actually, no, I take that back. It wasn't the boundary part, a better sense of self. Because we had talked a couple episodes back about having self-trust and how self-trust relates to a sense of self. And like, it was one of those, it just felt like I didn't have a great sense of self. So that was my goal for that seminar was I need a better sense of self. Because I knew all the like qualities, like I can bullet point those, but it still didn't feel like I had a good sense of myself.
Did it feel like you weren't maybe checking them off the list for you of like, yep.
Well, it felt like I can articulate like sense of self. Like I know I'm kind. I can be funny in my opinion. I'm not funny to everybody and that's okay.
You are funny.
Thank you. I'm intelligent. I can have very graceful moments like, and then the other characteristics like education or things like that I do think kind of build onto who I am, but I still didn't have like a great sense of self. And of course the like natal chart stuff, but I still didn't feel like I had a good sense of self or it didn't feel like that. And it was really interesting because at the beginning of the seminar, they were like, you sit in the hot seat and let them know why you're there. And I said that and he was just like, close your eyes. Like, when you look at yourself, what does it look like? And this has never happened before. So I closed my eyes and I was like, I look like soup, like this puddle of soup that's just spread out. Is what it looks
like it's not even in a bowl. It's just like,
no, it's
just like,
I guess without the gravity, like this blob of soup, just like that, just kind of. And I'm just like, I'm just soup. And and they were like, what's there? And then he was like, what would help? What do you feel like you need? I was like, I feel like I need my soup to be in a pot. And so I envisioned my soup in a pot. And now I look at it like a cauldron with the soup in it. And it really helped. And not just that, but it's so funny because when I work on people to remind myself of the boundary and my sense of self, I'll imagine like I've got 2 hands sticking out of my little cauldron to work with people.
You're like,
right? It's just like jutted out the side, like, so the metaphor of soup. So the reason for that, and it was really interesting because at first I'm like, what the world is going on with my brain? And if this is a thing, if this has come up before, I apologize. I don't remember hearing about this before. Like it just was like, what the world? But with the soup stuff, when I really started thinking about it, I was like, I felt better about using that analogy when it comes to life. I can't help what my base is, what I start with. And then there are times where events or tragedies or hardships may happen and someone may come by and like dump a cup of salt in my soup. But with that, I can, add more water to the soup. I can add potatoes to the soup to kind of help with the salt. If there's too much bitterness in it, I can add things to my life to help change the flavor of it. It doesn't take away those things that happened previously, but that I can still do things, add things to my life to change the palette of it, change that flavor of it. Does that make sense?
It does. Yep. What just came into my mind was regulating. Like we can regulate the temperature within our pot.
Mhm.
If it gets too hot, we know we're going to bring it down. Or if it was too
Yep.
cold, it's like regulating what's in that.
Well, true. And also, too, are there times where we may be fine, but we're in a room that's 100 degrees? So we may not have put ourselves on a stove. But if we're in a 100-degree room versus placed in a freezer, someone drops the temperature and it's suddenly 40 degrees and we're like shivering. And we can't help it if someone shoots it up to like 100 degrees. And even though we did not put ourselves on the stove or something like that, we can't help that aspect of it. But you're right, like for ourselves directly, are we putting ourselves on the stove, turning up the temperature, cooking ourselves for so long that like all the water is evaporating and we're left with sludge in it? And then it feels like being able to define, or for me too, what helps is that which situations are like carrots. I like carrots, by the way, but for this analogy, right? So if carrots get dumped into my soup, if it just got dumped in there, it's easier for me to pluck those carrots out, right? There may be situations where I can just pluck those carrots out. But if the carrots have been in there for like 8 hours, the longer you cook it, the mushier it is. So I may be able to take pieces of that carrot out, but it could be that some of those pieces are so disintegrated that they're in the soup now. And there may be other situations where it's not a carrot situation. It could be a situation, like I said before, where it's a salt situation. Or it could be another type of spice where there's no amount of taking it out. It's one of those situations that it stays with us. It stays in there. And instead of it's that it's not that it's okay that someone came and dumped a cup of salt in our soup, but that we can do our best to add things to it to change that flavor of it. And one of the reasons I like it too is that I think there are some things in life that happen that no matter how much work we do, it's always going to be with us. And that's not a good or bad thing. It's just, it is what it is. And I think embracing okay, this may always be here, but I can add things to my soup to.
That's what I was going to, because when you had mentioned the carrots, like the carrots will always be there, but they may have disintegrated.
Mhm.
And I think, correct me if I'm thinking this differently, but like in that soup, we know those carrots are there. But now, if we think of like things that may have not been a good thing that have happened to us, that created us, our soup, they're still there, but now we know it's still there, but we add other things in, not to take away from the soup, but build upon it.
So
Almost like, so it's like not that we're masking and forgetting about
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, because that's the thing too, is that it's okay to not forget it either. Or sometimes that flavor may come up again, and that's okay. It's like with the potatoes, for example, like you put potatoes to help soak up some of the seasonings to help it. Now it's in the potato. It doesn't change the fact that it's there, but it can make it that it's more palatable.
Yeah. And I was even thinking like I'm just thinking like even things they've kind of forced us to create a beautiful soup.
Mhm.
And even if we didn't want the carrots in there, but that forced us still to now create an even more beautiful soup built
Yeah.
upon that. And
Well, and I think that's one of those, that's why it's like depending on the seasonings and depending on what's added to the soup, some things we can make the best of it. And some things it's one of those we can still make the best of it, but at the same time, we're still bearing it. And I do think there are some things that we're just bearing it. I think there are some atrocities that you just add more, you try to add more to your life that make it fulfilling and wonderful. It doesn't take away whatever that flavor was that was there, but you're adding more, like you were saying, adding more to your soup, adding more to it. For some reason, it just really helped me.
yeah, 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 I like that because that resonates with me. Like I visualize that because it's
Right?
like when you said the carrots, I pictured them like, and then they get softer and softer, and then they finally disintegrate. It's still part of the soup.
And the thing is too, is that there are some people who the soup they're born with it may just be water, or it may not be water at all. It may be seasonings, or it may not be either one. They may start off with a container. They may start off with nothing. Like, that community, it depends on what community builds the individual that builds the community. So depending on the community that they started with and all that stuff, they may have little bit. You may have others who have like all the fanciest ingredients, the best stock, the fanciest container. Cool. Like for both of them, it's that we all start off with different containers and types of soup. Or like in my case, I didn't even think to have a container apparently. I don't know if I did as a kid because I never done the metaphor before. But it was like, oh, I gotta like, am I in my container for my soup? Like, do I have my container for my soup? Like, or am I just like floating out there?
Yeah,
So it's like,
floating
yeah,
soup.
right? It's harder to have a boundary if you view yourself as amorphic, I guess.
Yeah. Yep.
Because I thought I did have boundaries for apparently being like a containerless soup. I had great
Yeah.
boundaries, but once I sat in my cauldron with my little arms out, I'm like, "Oh, this feels way much nicer," like
Yep.
with the little T-Rex arms. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
really fancy, very fancy stuff. But yeah, so the soup metaphor, it's really helped me with life, with accepting both the good and bad of life and events that happen, that some things we're able to let go of. And I know there are definitely some events that stuck with me, and they'll always be part of my history or part of my stock, right? My stock of soup. It'll always be there, but instead I focus on adding other things, other flavors, other whatever to my soup.
Do you think it's, to mask it or just to build upon it?
I think it would depend. I do think for some of the I don't view it I don't that's a really good question. I don't say masking it, it's like overpowering it. In certain situations, I feel like like I add more flavors that I enjoy, things that I enjoy to overpower that bitterness or that whatever that thing is. So, that
It's
would probably
kinda
be the phrase that I would use with it.
yeah, I was kinda thinking kinda like doctoring it up.
Yeah, because I think it depends on, obviously, the situation, or it depends on, yeah, because some things, like, I think sometimes it's a masking situation where it's like we're just making the best of something, type of thing, but yeah, so that is my
Soup
soup
metaphor.
metaphor.
Yeah. Like, how cool was that? If you think, like, if you didn't go to that class and he didn't say, "Close your eyes."
Mhm. Yeah.
Some things that we think like, some people may say, like, "That's a small thing," but that was a huge thing. It was probably a matter of a few minutes, but it was moment altering,
It was. Oh,
clarity.
yeah. It definitely changed, like, that was definitely a life shift for me in the positive direction, right? That was a good chunk of stuff to add to my soup right there.
Yeah.
So so, yeah, I agree with that. Well, and imagine that was also it was him asking the question. It was that entire group of people holding the space. And when I said that I felt like soup, like no one was like, "Oh, that's stupid or ridiculous." I mean, I don't know what people are thinking in their head, but it was a very, like, accepting environment, like, "Oh, okay, that's what it looks like to you." And just allowing me to kinda go through what I felt I needed in order to, like, feel more of a sense of self. So, like, instead of him saying, "Hey, why don't you put yourself in a container?" He was like, "What do you feel like you need to do
Yeah.
to help this along, or to help? Like, what do you feel like you need?" And so that was pretty profound, and doing that, like, and being that vulnerable to say all that, to be like, "Hey, I don't have a sense of self, you guys." Like, and I would really like one, and then to really to sit with that. So, yeah, it was a lot of different levels with it that were really nice, and it felt like the perfect time for it, so.
It felt like you kind of touched on it, is that space was created for you to feel safe, to let that come out, because I think if you were in a space in that setting, in a group setting that you didn't feel comfortable, that would not have that
Oh, no, I wouldn't have even said any of that stuff if I didn't feel safe in it. Well, and it's so funny because my word of the year is, or one of my words of the year is collaboration. So
and that
it
ties
was
right in.
Right? It's like, "Okay, thanks." Which I mean, that could be a whole tangent too, with what all has been going on since picking the word of the year, but we'll do another episode where we'll reflect back on all the
Yeah,
adventures we've had so far with our words of the year. But yeah, it was really awesome. So yeah,
yeah,
soup.
soup. And one thing else I wanna add is I can guarantee you, because I've been in spaces like that, where you just feel safe, that other people in that room took something too that helped them.
Oh my gosh, I had told someone already about the soup analogy. They use it all the time now. Now when they see me, they're like, "Hey, this is perfect for soup." So, yeah, it's been awesome, like, yeah, so
Yeah.
so absolutely. But yeah, so that is the soup metaphor. If you want, you can reflect on your soup. Is it in a container? What type of container is it in? Do you wanna switch the container your soup is in? You know, things like that.
Yeah, it's like almost doing like just inviting people to just let's do a check-in. Get a piece of paper, just do a check-in. How are you will not know. You could who knows what's gonna come out when you actually sit and think and write or just
Yeah.
think. Yeah.
Or just think, yeah, because with that, we weren't writing it out. It was like, just visualizing, and it was really wild how just boop, it was right there, and I'm like, "You've gotta be kidding me." In some ways, it was, like,
Mhm.
when it's a good group space, the things that can come out and the answers that can come out are pretty amazing. Because I mean, I hadn't asked about the sense of self specifically before and how much phrasing can make a difference because, I've done, like, self-reflection stuff. Like, I've really been working probably overworking on myself in some ways, but for about 7 or 8 years, I was really working on myself hard, but it's been, like, now 10 years worth of stuff, and this is going into that, 10-year mark that this is all that came out. So you never know timing wise. Like, I think there's that aspect too of like, there's always profound things that can happen in your life no matter what stage you feel like you're at
Mhm.
in this wonderful journey. So,
Yeah.
and I will say for me that it actually helped me settle the world down when it came to self work. So I don't know if also having that sense of self, I'm like, oh, okay, now I'm like sitting back more uh and just enjoying like, well, for the amount I can,
Yeah.
like in my small the the little bits that I can, right? But it's really interesting how having that, it just created this at least internal sense regarding like self-relationship, I guess, of this settling or peace.
That's
Soup,
great. Soup. And then you could just do a check-in. Soup
soup.
to yourself. Like, where am I? What am I? Where am I at right now?
Exactly. All right. So, you ready for the next metaphor?
I am ready.
Okay, this one I think you're really gonna like. I think.
I like the other one.
I'm pretty confident. And yes, and I like the other one too, but I'm really excited about this one. Now this metaphor, I don't like I've if I who I heard it from, I don't remember the stuff with it because this was about 10, 15 years ago that I started to think about this, but as I mature or as I get older and stuff like that, it hits different levels and different ways to look at it. But it's the music metaphor and more specifically the instrument metaphor for for the sake of this, it's viewing that we're talking about instruments. It can be whatever instruments you want, woodwinds, brass, string instruments, whatever. And life is a symphony, right? All of us coming together in groups to create these different types of music together, right? And so when it comes to the instrument metaphor, not everybody is born with the same instrument and also not the same quality of an instrument. So, like, for example, I was a trombone player way back, so I'll use the trombone as the example. But it's like, and actually, so the trombone I played was from a pawn shop, rock out, right?
Yeah.
So it had some dents in it, it had some scratches on it, it still played beautifully, but that was the instrument that I had, right? Versus there were some people who had instruments that they borrowed that they used from the school. There were some who had instruments that they had that were these, like, very shiny, no dents in it, all that sort of stuff. So you can't help what instrument that you're born with, right? And then some people unfortunately don't have an instrument, and yet they're being told, you're a trombone player. And you're like, but I do not have a trombone. And then they get mad at you because you're not playing the trombone. And you're like, good sir or madam or good person, I do not have this trombone that you speak of, but you're expecting me to play it. You got to give me a trombone. We're not going to give you one, right? So you can have that situation. So some people, like, they're not born with the instruments, or they're expected to play an instrument that they don't have. Another aspect is when it comes to being in a symphony is, are we shown how to utilize our instrument, right?
Mhm.
Was I lucky enough to have an adult when I was yay big teach me how to play the trombone, teach me scales, teach me notes, teach me how to work my mouth to create these sounds? Or was I left to my own devices? Or did one of the other trombone players help teach me how to do it? With that said, at the end of the day, I still had to practice,
Mhm.
right? I still had to play the trombone, go through the arm movements, work with how I hold my mouth to create these sounds. And to be in that symphony, I got to make sure that I'm doing the best I can to play my part. After a certain point, if I'm not playing my part, if I'm don't care, I may not play at all. That's on me. If I'm constantly not practicing, not working on it, and then when it's performance time, I'm playing all the wrong notes, that's on me, right? Specific, right? So we're not talking about little kids in this situation. Let's pretend we're all adults.
Mhm.
So, from that perspective, when it comes to the instrument, even it's my responsibility to figure out how to play it. It sucks if no one showed me how, and it sucks even more for a person who didn't have an instrument. And so they have to get the instrument before they can even play it, but that's on me, right? And then bringing it into duets. So, that can be friendships, romantic relationships, whatever. So, duets. So let's say that I've done my part to learn my instrument, to play my notes, to learn my scales, to just do this. If I end up with a relationship where the other person cannot play well, it's us acknowledging that, right? Let's say they don't know how, right? They've never been taught how to play their instrument, but they want to do a duet. What work are they doing? It could be that we both are trombone players. And so, yeah, I could help guide them. But are they practicing? Are they learning the notes? Are they trying to learn the scales? Are they trying to put in the effort? Or is it every time we play, they're putting it on me that we don't sound good? Right. And then you can even take it from, say that instead they're like a clarinet player and I play the trombone. I can help you with notes. I don't know about like how to work the fingers. That is not my repertoire.
Yeah.
Like, so, so I can't help you with that. And the mouth movements for a woodwind instrument is different than a brass. And so I can show you the notes. Like, so again, with that person, are they trying to figure out how to play their instrument? Are they trying to figure out the notes? Are they trying to get that help? Or is it when we play together, they're putting all that expectation on me, or they're blaming me that we sound off, right? And then are we tuned together? Because with instruments, you have to tune to each other. So, like when a group is playing together, they'll all play the E flat and tune to each other to make sure everybody is together with it. And there are times, depending on weather, that you have to retune because of the environment. Like it may be too hot. Here we go with weather again. It may be too hot. It may be too cold. You've got to retune it. It could be I dropped my trombone. Well, crap. It could be there's a dent in it. It could be a bad dent where I have to go get help to undent the thing. It could be a minor dent where it doesn't affect the sound quality. And I'm just like, well, wasn't my best moment, but let's
Mhm.
not do that again, right? And then not just that, but I don't know the example with trombone, but with clarinets, with the keys, they have a padding underneath it, if I'm remembering correctly. And
Mhm.
so, if the person has the right like reed or the right mouthpiece for their clarinet, it looks fine, but they know all the notes, they know all the stuff, they've worked with everybody, but it still sounds like crap. Come to find out, it could be that they're missing those little pads underneath those keys, you know? So for them, they needed something, you know, it may have been that it was assumed, oh, obviously you don't know the notes. No, they knew the notes. Oh, obviously you're doing this. Obviously you're doing that. But it turns out that it was the pads that they needed to help with the sound. So why each person may sound off or not great could be different
Like
too.
in tune. So they
Yeah.
could be yep.
Yeah, so they could play it. So it's like, uh, but, the reason I bring all that up is or the reason I like the metaphor of the instruments is I feel like there's so many levels that you can take that with because you have the individual level with an instrument. Again, does the person even have an instrument? Maybe they don't have any instrument. Maybe they make the best of it by doing everything with their voice instead and be like, "To heck with it. I'm not even cool with an instrument. I'm just gonna work on my voice because I got that," right?
Mhm.
It could be that their instrument is in bad quality, or it could be in excellent quality. It could be it doesn't have all the pieces that it needs. It could be it has everything that it needs. It could be that that person has a support system to teach them how to play those instruments or to play that instrument, excuse me. It could be they have no one to show them, so they're having to tinker around with it on their own. And not just that, but imagine you pick up an instrument, whatever instrument, and the people surrounding you don't know how to play that instrument and you start playing it, if they're like, "You're awesome. You rock. Keep doing it. You're amazing." What are you gonna do? Like, you're gonna keep playing it. You're gonna like, "Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, man. Like, I'm learning this stuff. I'm getting good at it." Like, if they're excited, "Tell me more about your instrument that you're playing. Tell me more about how that's going." "Oh, yeah, this is awesome." Versus if you go to pick it up and they're like, "That sounds terrible. It is awful. This person sucks." Like, how inclined well, don't be wrong, spite can be a powerful motivator, but besides the spite motivation, like, how inclined are we gonna be to, like, pick it up
Mhm.
and keep playing it if we're just gonna get, like, poo-pooed on, right? And so, you have people in those different situations when it comes to learning their instrument. And so, then here they are, this individual with this instrument sitting in front of this music. And so for that solo, you know, what is that gonna sound like? Depending on which scenarios they came from with it. And that's one of those we can't help the community aspects. We can't help which instrument we ended up with, what amount of support we had. But at the end of the day, we're the ones who are gonna be held responsible for how we sound. And so we have to, you know, decide if we're gonna do our best to invest to try to create some type of music from the instrument that we got,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that's fair or unfair. That's just, you know, we're gonna people who listen to us play are gonna look at us. They're not gonna look at all the other aspects, right?
Yep. Yep.
How we sound.
How we evolved
Mhm.
to be playing that.
Yep. Yes. And especially people who aren't in music, for some people, it seems like they don't give enough credit to how much musicians have to do. Like, the amount of hours, like, it is insane.
It is.
Time
Like they literally, it's not a joke, 10,000 hours.
I've heard of that,
Yeah.
yes.
And that's just touching the surface. That's just knowing it.
Yeah.
But to be, yeah, prolific and just expanding beyond that, it's even more hours.
And I didn't even mention this part, but different people, like, I didn't get this, but I had, it was my great grandfather, I think, who he could tinker around and play any instrument. Like, he would have friends who would randomly and this was back in the day, like, back in the day, and he was, like, in a very small coal mine town type of thing, or no, it was more popular during that time. But still, like, he'd have people, like, bring random instruments to him, like, "Try to play this one." And he'd go walk by himself and tinker around with it and come back. So, I mean, of course, you have prodigies that could be in the mix or whatever, but I digress with that. So that's that individual, right? Like, how we sound in our solo, we're the ones who have to, you know, deal with that and hold ourselves to that. Again, it's not always fair, like, the circumstances that led to that point, but it is what it is. That's
Mhm.
life. It'd be great if we had awesome communities that funded the arts,
Mhm.
you know, and funded people to help us better learn our instrument, to better help guide us. And it'd be great if we had support systems like that. And if we don't have an instrument, that we have support systems that help us get an instrument.
Mhm.
That would be fantastic. Like trees that you were talking about before, seeing what we don't have and adding to it.
Yep.
And at the end of the day, the solo that we play, that's on us, right?
Mhm.
And, ideally, we'd have a good community to help us to come together. But all we can hold ourselves to is how we play that instrument, right? And then from there, bringing in friendships, romantic relationships, any sort of partnership type of thing, it's okay for us to say or be honest about how we sound together. Maybe we don't want to play the same genre together. Maybe we don't want to play at the same tempo. There could be potential duets that it doesn't line up together. It doesn't work together, and that's okay.
Mhm.
It could be they're a fantastic performer just as much as we are a fantastic performer with our instrument, but it just doesn't work together because we both want different things. That's okay. You can have two amazing people that are not compatible in that way. And so they both go on their separate ways to continue their awesomeness. Of course, hopefully, you can have friendships, partnerships, romantic stuff where y'all are on the same page and y'all are pretty well evenly matched with the sound and creating music together. That is awesome. And then you have this relationship that you can build upon to create more music together, more songs together. And it may be that sometimes y'all want to try different genres, different tempos, different key signatures,
Yep.
all that super fun stuff, right? You can have it that, so that would be like both of those situations are, good situations, whether it's an amicable, hey, not great, or hey, this is great. Let's keep doing this. Or, friendships too. It's like, hey, I'm going to play with you for a while. Now I'm going to play over here, but there's that healthy rapport. And it's not to say that we need to be perfect, but it's that we're both doing our part to sound well on our own. So when we come together as a pair, we continue that wonderful sound, right?
Mhm.
Okay. And then you have, like I mentioned before, the one where you may be doing good, and then this person comes in. They aren't even trying. Like they may have never, meh, meh, and they could have a beautiful instrument. It could be they were given a beautiful instrument from the beginning. They had all the support in the world, and they're just like, no, I just don't want to do it. I'll hire someone else to do it. I'm not doing this. Or they could have, unfortunately, it could be that they have a banged up instrument and they didn't have any support, right? Either way, by the time that you meet them, they have not put any effort into learning a song. That's not your responsibility to teach them. That's not on you to teach them. And it's not your fault that they sound like crap. I think is the big thing. And we're talking about adults and all this, right? Like adult sort of rapport with all this stuff. But yeah, so it's not your fault. So if someone is trying to put something on you or trying to blame something on you in a situation, ask yourself, like, or you can reflect on, how is my instrument sounding? Like, how am I playing this part in this
Mhm.
relationship, this rapport? How are they playing? Because again, if they sound like crap or they're just not putting any effort in, they're not trying and they're putting it all on you, it's not, I wouldn't recommend that duet
Yeah. It
personally.
it's kinda like they may be you say like, "Hey, we're gonna play this song." They're playing a totally different song, kinda like when you're saying genres.
If you're
Genres
lucky.
don't blend. Yeah.
Yeah, if you're lucky, well, and you can have that too, actually, that's a really good point, where you could be playing your genre at your tempo, and you're like, "This is my style." And they come in and they play beautifully too with their genre at their tempo, and the 2 don't blend together. If they're getting mad at you for that, that you need to change and you don't wanna change, you don't have to change. That's, 2 things just not blending together, and that's okay. Now you can also like there are definitely times where I've been exposed to genres and I'm like, "That's really awesome. I just never knew it existed." And I'm like, "I wanna learn more about this." So, of course, you could meet someone who you get to learn about a new genre, and you're just
Yeah.
like, "Hot dog, yeah, here
Yeah.
we go." Like, you can do that too. But it's one of those, like, looking at it from those aspects, I noticed that when I looked at it from that way, it really has helped me determine or be better aware of my responsibilities in relationships, the part that I'm playing,
Mhm.
the part that I'm not playing, like, and where that comes from and which parts are on them that they're unfairly blaming me for. And then the other aspect is, like, do we have scheduled times to meet up? Like, are they showing up to our scheduled times? Am I showing up to our scheduled times? Are we showing up on time? Or we're just like, whatever, right? So there could be that whole continuation of that metaphor. And then you have communities where is the community all on a similar page about the time, the tempo, the genre, which there are genres, of course, that can blend together pretty well. And you can have different tempos, but they still synchronize well. So it doesn't have to be that everybody's exactly the same, right? We
Mhm.
know that too. But it's like it's the group as a whole, or at least I've noticed are at least like 70-80% of people decent at their instruments, decently contributing, decently showing up, doing the things. Because that sounds very different than if you've only got 20% in that group showing up and doing the things. While 20%, while 80% is like whatever, right?
Mhm.
So if you're looking to join like join a community, you can reflect on that stuff too. How much of this is actually a collaboration
Mhm.
again,
Yeah.
how much of this is a collaboration where again 70, I'd aim for 80 if you can, that at least 80% of people are putting in the effort and that sound decent or sound pretty good and that they care and all that stuff because that's going to affect the quality. And of course, if you can get 100%, that'd be awesome. But everybody has their off days, everybody has their bad days.
Mhm.
There are different times our priorities shift depending on what's going on in our life. So, the 80% to give grace for life. But or is it that you're part of the 20% who is doing everything and people from the 80% are expecting you to work harder to make them sound good?
It's like pick up the slack.
So, I like the instrument metaphor a lot.
It's super cool. Yeah, because it's like the song we carry and how well we carry our song,
Mhm.
and, like, how we came about to play that song, and there's just so much into that, so many facets, like you were saying. How was the instrument? What's the genre? How was the training? How much work was put in?
Yeah. And are we being unfairly blamed for something that is another person's efforts?
Mhm.
And the flip side, are we unfairly blaming someone else for something that has to be our effort? So, it's one of those with those duets. Like, am I showing up on time? Am I doing my part in the relationship to help the duet? Or am I trying to pin it all on the other person? So, of course, I was taking it on the side that it's the other person doing whatever, but sometimes it's us. Like, I have not met one person who hasn't messed up a relationship. It's life.
Yeah, it is. That is a part, you know, and hopefully the people that are in tune learn
Mhm.
from that.
And the other part is, and you could say this better or attest to this better than I can, but I don't know. It's not often that things are perfectly played.
Mhm. Yep.
Like,
And
yeah.
sometimes in the flaws there is beauty,
Mhm.
because that is still creativity, and it's how the note sits and how it feels and how it resonates for the listener.
True. Well, and it's one of those, like, if you have played, because some songs are what, 3.5 to 4 minutes, some are shorter than that, some obviously are longer than that. So if you play 3 minutes great of a song that's 3.5 minutes long, you've played like 78% of that song well, right? And obviously, if you play more, that percent goes up. So if you flub a couple of notes here and there, like, it's still awesome. Like, it's
Yep.
still in the 90 percentile. So I think there's that aspect too, is that there are times where even if we've played the same song over and over and over again, there are times that we just we're going to miss a note. We may miss the beat. We may like blank for a moment. And it's like, wait, I'm supposed to be playing great now. I've had it once or twice where I'm like, "Whoop," and then I'm like, "Oh, crap." So, especially if there's, like, pauses, it's like, "Oh,
Be like, whoa.
I'm supposed to come in now. Crap." Like, so those things can happen, and it's like, but you still rocked it out, so don't give yourself a hard time either for flubbing notes or whatever, and don't let anybody else give you a hard time for flubbing notes here and there either. And that's another thing to pay that I would bring into the instrument metaphor is that for who's critiquing you, right? So say I'm playing my happy trombone and someone's telling me I'm doing a shoddy job. Do they play an instrument? Do they have some type of knowledge in this? And then also too, how do we normally interact? Are they always poo-pooing on everything? Like, oh, well, that was crappy and that was crappy and that person played crappy and I'm the only person who plays well and stuff like that? Or is it a sincere critique? And it's not to say, like, don't get me wrong, I definitely think there are performances where even a person who isn't musically inclined can listen to it and be like, oh no, that was a bad job. Hopefully, if that was that case, I would already know that too and be like, I'm so sorry. You were right person. I already know it was terrible. And what you're saying is totally fair. It was bad. Like, that was bad. Hopefully, I'm self aware enough that even a person who doesn't know what's going on knows that's not right.
And makes me think too, the like kind of like I think what you were maybe saying or made me think of is like the evaluator,
hmm
the
Yeah.
evaluator.
Yeah, because it's one of those that there are people in our lives who give us advice.
Hmm.
And sometimes it's not fun advice and it does not feel good, but where they're coming from, they may be an expert. You know what I mean? Or they may have been in that similar situation. And so they know the patterns of what's going on. And so they're giving that advice of just like, hey, by the way, that, was that. And then again, there are times where the evaluator, there's a person we may view as the evaluator, but we shouldn't because you know, I like that saying of if I'm not going to listen to you for advice, I'm not going to listen to your for criticism.
I like
Like,
that a lot. Yeah.
and then obviously, say you meet a professional trombone player who is amazing, then yeah, the advice they give, you may want to take it more to heart if they're like this expert in this thing this instrument that you play that you're really passionate about and you like what they do.
Hmm.
Their critiques maybe, have merit to them. So there's that aspect too of if you want a life similar to someone, listening. Like, whether you follow their advice or not is a totally different thing for totally understandable reasons, but yes, the evaluator, like who's evaluating and who put them in that position, and do you even want them in that position? Because you can fire them from it.
Yep.
So that is my music slash instrument metaphor. Like I said, that has really helped me with figuring out dynamics, my personal responsibility of others, and not taking other people's responsibilities onto myself. And embracing that. I think that what I like about it too is that it's acknowledging the unfairness while also being like, this aspect is unfair. This is why we need to invest in community. I've got to invest in my community and be there for my community in the ways that I can. And also, too, I still got to make the best of this
Yep.
with my instrument,
With the instrument you have.
with my pawn shop trombone. So,
On shop trombone.
pawn shop trombone. It played well. I'm very grateful I had it. So,
I bet it did. That's super cool. I love both of those metaphors. Yeah.
so soup and instruments,
Yep. Two great things.
that's right. I wouldn't recommend combining them though, please.
No,
I would not recommend that. So yeah. I mean, you can do what you want. I just wouldn't recommend it.
not recommended.
Not
But
recommended.
there's always free will.
So Cheston does not recommend putting your soup in the trombone. There is free will, but I do not recommend it. This is not approved by Sacred Access. All right. That's all I've got for today. Anything you'd like to add or anything?
Thank you for bringing that up. Like I said, both of those are great metaphors. Like they will reside with me as well. I'm viewing what is my soup and what container it's in, and what instrument am I playing, and how well am I playing, and how did I get that instrument, and who's critiquing me.
Yep. Ooh, and another part to add is I I don't relate to this, but I feel like it's important to note too that there are people who are given instruments that they don't feel like they're not that player.
Yeah.
So a person can be given a trumpet and they're like, but I'm meant to be a violin player, you know? So there are all those metaphors that also can be added to it.
Cool. Well, thank you for bringing it to us today.
Thanks. I've got a couple other metaphors. Maybe we'll get into those next time. All right. So thank y'all so much for tuning in to Sacred Axis, a space for the whimsically divine.